Good evening. Hey, since some of you guys are new, let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Miller. My wife Gloria and I have been attending here for about 6 years. I've been a pastor for over 40 years in Indianapolis, and now I work for a mission in India, doing fundraising for them. And I coach churches and Christian leaders around the country, just helping them break through barriers in their ministry and stuff like that. And so every once in a while, Zach gives me an opportunity to come and share with you. From his perspective, I bring a unique perspective. I'm a father of 3 girls, and I'm a grandfather of 5. In fact, my oldest grandson, which I almost always talk about, is 14. He's a freshman at Roncalli, and he's 6'4", 251 pounds now. He's an offensive tackle. They beat Southport yesterday morning, 35-0. So, yeah, I brag on him a little bit. But I'm excited to be with you guys. Hey, Nick, are you still back there? I got a beef with you. Okay, so 3 years in a row, I haven't gotten anything at Game Changers, and there are people that get it every year. So, I agree. So, I'm just saying. Okay, all right, well, we can empathize together. So we're talking about going places, and in that process of wherever we're going, friends play a big part of that. And so really talking about, the role that friendships play. When you get to my age, you have a lot of friends that come and go. You also recognize that sometimes people you thought were friends in a season were actually more like acquaintances. Kind of stuff. But we all know who those friends are that are significant, and sometimes it's only in hindsight you recognize that. One of my best friends, and by best friends I mean we talk regularly. He lives in Oklahoma. When we were in 3rd grade, I moved across the street from him, and we went to school all the way through high school. We got out, we went to college. I was best man at his first wedding. Best man at his 2nd wedding, and I actually officiated at his 3rd wedding. But he was also best man at my wedding, and so we've just experienced a lot of life together. And just so you know, I did suggest at his first wedding that we had a few minutes, it might be a good time to run. He didn't listen. At his 2nd wedding, I just remind him of how wise I was at his first wedding, and he still refused to run. So I tried. That's all a friend can do, is try sometimes. And so he made 2 bad mistakes. But now he's been with his wife Brenda for 30 years. And so he finally got it right. But friends, you get to my age, I've lost a lot of friends. I lost friends in high school. I had a friend in high school that drowned while we were out swimming in the lake. He just didn't come up. And he was found several days later. I had a friend that was killed in a car accident in high school. And I've just had friends that have died from cancer and everything else. And so, the idea of friendship, when Zach asked me to talk about this, it's like, that's a powerful emotion for me. And I'm sure friendship is it brings up powerful emotions for you, but probably for different reasons. You're living in those experiences right now. And what it looks like when you have strong friendships, what it looks like when those friendships show some cracks or some fraying around the edges and stuff like that. But the reality is we just don't make it through life well without friends. And we can make it through life. We just can't make it through life without friends. And there's this saying that true friends aren't the ones who make your problems disappear. They're the ones who don't disappear when you're having problems. And so, just getting to that place of what does it look like to have true friend. Now, you guys are old enough now that I'm sure you've all had experiences where you thought people were friends that you could probably trust for a lifetime, and you found out that maybe that wasn't necessarily true. And so I want you to have that in the back of your mind tonight, because that piece of the puzzle really plays a little bit into our discussion. But I want you just to think about the last time you argued with a close friend. Just in your mind, think about the last time you had an argument or something happened, a tension between you and a close friend. What caused the argument? And again, you don't nothing nice to say anything out loud. Just in your own mind, what caused the argument? How did you act in that? How did you act? How did you respond? Verbally, emotionally, physically, whatever the case may be. And by physically, that's even withdrawal can be a physical reaction to that conflict. How did it make you feel? How did you feel in the midst of that conflict? And that the midst isn't just in that moment where you recognize you have conflict. It's as that plays out over a matter of minutes or hours or days or weeks or maybe even months. How did you feel during that? But then later on, as you had perspective, how did you feel looking back after the moment? And again, thinking about what caused it, how you responded. And it's easy for us to go back and think about how our friend behaved. But one of the things about any kind of relationship, whether it's marriage or parenting in my case, or friendships, is there's a reality that we have to accept at some point in time. And that is that I don't have any control over the other person. The only person I have any control with in any kind of relational context is me. And so it's always a question of, I wish they had done this. It's more of a question of, what could I have done differently? How could I have responded differently? How could I have spoken differently? How could I have reacted? So when you go back and think for a minute about that last time you had a conflict with a friend, and if it's a raw emotion right now, I apologize for that, because I do recognize sometimes we bring raw emotions with us to a conversation. I do apologize. But if this was in the past a little bit and you've moved a little bit down the road, what was the outcome? Were you able to reconcile that relationship? Were you able to find a way to meet in the middle, to come back? And sometimes that means we have to give or at least we feel like we have to give a little bit more than they did, or something like that. Or did it result in a division? A fission, that relationship. Because sometimes we can have fissions that they just are there, and they're kind of, almost like an infection kind of thing under an injury or something like that. They just kind of fester for a little bit. Other times it's just like, pull the Band-Aid off and we're done. Most of us with any life in us have had those experiences where, the friendship moves on, but it doesn't always move on in the same way it did before. There are other times it's just like the friendship can't move on. I had a weird experience about a month ago. I got a message on Facebook Messenger from a guy that I went to high school with that I haven't seen 50 years, 40 years, 45 years, that somehow found me on Facebook. And his message to me was, "You're a fraud. I know what you were like in high school. And you're a fraud. And everybody that thinks you're anything but a fraud right now, is confused." And I'm like, I don't know what makes me more sad. The fact that he is true, that I was all those things that he claimed I was, back when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I was all those things. I don't deny that. I've never denied that. It still bothered me that came back after that amount of time. But the other thing that bothered me is that somehow, some way, I hurt this guy bad enough that many years later, he's still harboring that in his heart. And as a Christian, that bothers me, at my core, that I could have hurt somebody that bad that many years ago, that they're still carrying that with them today. But then I thought about this. I was talking to my wife about it after it happened, and because she asked the question, well, has nobody ever done that to you? And as I stopped and thought about it, it's like, yeah, I guess it's true. There are people that have wounded me that I think about. I don't talk about it anymore. I don't share it. But they wounded me in the past. And that's what friendships do, because friendships get underneath your skin and they create some kind of bond that when that bond is threatened, it takes something away from us. But when we get our friendships going in the right direction, they can add a lot to us as well. So in John chapter 17, Jesus is with his friends. And he's sharing with his friends about what his hope and aspirations are for them, because he knows he's not going to be with them much longer. And so he shares with them in John 17, verses 20 through 23. He says, "My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message," through his friends, "that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, that they may also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I and them, you and me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you have sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me." And so when Jesus is talking to the Father about his friends, the thing that comes to the forefront for him is, when I'm gone, I want to have left such a powerful impression upon them that what they talk about in the future changes other people's lives. And so when we think about not just what our friends have done to us, but what we can be as friends, how we can speak into lives, I think it's important, because what Jesus wants for us, what he wants for us as individuals, is that the relationships in our lives bring unity. And unity is that place where it's okay for us to disagree sometimes. It's okay for us not to always see things in the same way, but we're committed to that relationship. We're committed to that friendship. We're committed to something that's bigger than us. And that's what Jesus wants for us as friends. Because we have to recognize that everybody goes through life, and everybody has relationships, and everybody has friendships, and many times those friendships are broken. But as Christians, we go through life, and there is a higher purpose that sometimes we miss when we allow our friendships to get pulled down here. That Jesus wants to remind us to pull them back up here. Because my friendships are not just a reflection of who I am and who we are. My friendships are a reflection of who the kingdom is and who we are as Christian people. And so pulling the nature of my friendships into my walk with God. In 1 Corinthians 12, verse 12, Paul says, "Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all of his many parts form one body, so it is with those of us who are in Christ." We're all different. We're all unique. We all bring different things to the table. In fact, many times, we'll find with our friends that we have different personalities in a collection of friends. And, I've been there. Sometimes you look around the room and recognize I'm kind of the odd man out. I've grown up and through high school, I was that person. I was never all of that in any group I was in, but I was a little bit of that in every group I was in. And so I was able just to create a broad base of friends. But, you looked out around the room, and this guy was class president, and this guy was the quarterback on the football team, and this guy was this, and I was always about this, kind of stuff. And so I know what it's like to be a little bit of the odd man out in that relationship, but also recognizing that all of those people and their investment in my life helped shape who I am today. Obviously I look back, that was a long time ago, but I haven't forgotten those people that were a part of my life and helped me, shape me there. Now, most of them, with the exception of the one guy I shared earlier, are not my friends today. We don't walk in the same circles. We don't have the same sphere of influence, but, half a dozen of them reach out to me, on my birthday or my anniversary through Facebook, and, keep that kind of connection. And everybody always wants to share that one story that you wish everybody would forget, kind of stuff. And it's just like, and what's bad with me is they share these things on Facebook, and then my wife sees them, and she's like, "Oh, you want to talk about that?" And I said, "Nope, I don't have a clue what they're talking about. Not a thing. I think they're just making it all up." But just recognize that we all bring something different, but when we all bring our differences together, we're better for it. And that's what we have to remember. I can't control everybody else in my sphere of influence. The only person I can control is me. And so the goal here is to recognize that I can bring something better, more powerful, more significant, more impacting to that relationship. You know, in the world, we know that differences divide. And those can be differences culturally, they can be differences in gender, they can be differences in socioeconomics, they can be differences of opinion. They can be differences of religion, even. And those differences tend to push us apart. But Jesus gives an example that in Christ, our differences can actually bring us together. If we can choose to take that path of, hey, I'm not going to leave this relationship. I'm not going to sever this friendship. I'm willing to work on this because I see the value, not just in our relationship, but I see the value in you because I know how God sees you. I know what God did for you. I know that Jesus shed his blood for you. And so because of that, because God so loved you, I'm willing to go the next level in those relationships. But in the kingdom, all those differences can reunite us. In Psalm 133, verse 1, it says, how good and pleasant is it when God's people live together in unity. How good and pleasant is it when God's people live together in unity. Now, we all know that there is not a single context that we exist in that is 24/7 united with no conflict. In fact, you know, most of us can find conflict no matter where we look. We can find it in our families. We can find it with our parents. We can find it with our siblings. You know, if you work, you can find it in the workplace. You know, we can find it among our core relationships and our friends. In our case, our small group. We can find conflict. Conflict is somewhat unavoidable, but it's not unconquerable if we choose to live differently. We don't have to agree. We don't have to agree, but Jesus does call us to be one, to be united. And so the challenge there is for us to choose a higher walk, a higher level for us. Now, the difficulty is that we would really like to talk to other people and say, you know what, this would work if you would choose that higher level. But my experience has been for me to tell somebody else how they ought to be processing this rarely works well for anybody. And so the challenge is just for me to choose a higher level, continue to walk that, and if asked, to be willing to share what that looks like. And so, you know, when we think about this idea, the kind of the final thought here tonight is that friends won't let differences divide them. And I would say Christian friends can't let differences divide. If we call ourselves Christian, if we follow Christ, if we've been washed by his blood, we can't choose to let differences divide. And so I've got several questions up here that I'd just like to throw out there with you to take to your groups. You know, what are the things that divide us today? Because this could be more than friendships, conversations that are happening in school. Why do they divide? What is it about them that's so divisive? And then what part can we play in changing the outcome? Okay, from reconciliation, or from, you know, division to reconciliation. How can we go about bringing that? So I want to thank you guys for letting me be a part of tonight, and blessings on the rest of your time together. Thank you.